So I had an embarrassingly jubilant boyhood experience the other day.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Was I part of this experience?
No, it wouldn't have happened if you were there.
Oh, okay. What happened?
We're talking about Star Wars today, and my little anecdote is related to that, because I grew up with Star Wars. I saw the trilogy movies in the theaters. I watched the original trilogy 1,000 times. But also, for our generation, the Star Wars games were a big deal. Battlefront was a lot of fun. You could play like different missions on all the different planets and in the skies, and it was really fun. My cousins actually turned me on to that. It was really fun. And the Lego Star Wars games were a big part of that, and they're still making good Star Wars games. There's one that's like Dark Souls called Jedi Fallen Order. That one's fantastic. And there's this game called Star Wars Squadrons, which I had never played because for all the games I'm good at, I am terrible at anything where you have to fly a plane.
That's always hard.
Like the ones where you're supposed to use a joystick, the like flight simulator
like
ones.
Like actually, like it's really like flying, right?
But this one is that.
Yeah.
But the problem is we just watched this movie, so I wanted to fly an X-Wing.
Of course.
So I tried Star Wars Squadrons, and you've got the two sticks, and you're trying to control the thrusters and the movement, looking around, and it's usually I'm good at that. I know you're not good at the 3D thing.
No,
but I usually am.
Okay.
I am unbearably bad at this game. I am brutally, horrifically unskilled at this game.
I want to watch this. I would like us to take a video and post it on social media.
The cool thing is you can stop your plane.
Just in the middle of space?
And you can just turn and then start moving again.
That's what I would do.
I went through the settings. There are settings, there are accessibility options, and I turned everything on. And it's so condescending in the best way.
Yeah.
Where the game will not kill me.
Nice.
Nothing will let me die. There's like kind of auto aim, so if I'm vaguely near it, it'll just drag it over and
like,
target them for me. And I literally can't die. So if I'm flying, I'm trying to chase some TIE fighter, but there's this big Star Cruiser coming to my way, and I don't move in time because I'm an idiot. My ship just like bounces off of it.
Wow. So with all these settings,
like a go-kart.
You're enjoying the game then?
I couldn't die. So I played the first mission, which is like half tutorial, but it is, there's plot and stuff happening. And you get to jump to hyperspace. And
very cool.
Your whole view's in the cockpit, and you're looking at the instruments to see, targeting and health and a bunch of, and it's really cool because you're actually consulting it like you're, driving or whatever in real life.
Yep.
And it's just awesome. The sounds and the explosions and the look, and it was glorious.
Well, I'm really glad that they could give you the baby version so that you could enjoy the game.
I could not have been worse at the game or enjoyed it more. I was thrilled.
Well, we've definitely got to take a video of that.
Yes.
Just a video, like gameplay footage of you playing. We should post that on our social media, which you can find at Second Breakfast Pod. Well, I'm so glad that you got to do that, Cam.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm very happy.
I had a good time.
That's really great. Well, yeah. So we're talking about Star Wars today. It is mid-December at this point, and I don't know why. And this isn't just me. But Star Wars is a Christmas movie. Like there's something about the Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter trifecta that's like nostalgic, classic fantasy that just feels like Christmas. I mean, in like the argument in Harry Potter is there are Christmas scenes because it takes place over a whole school year. But like Lord of the Rings is like the most green springtime pastoral thing you've ever seen, but there's something about, and maybe it's like when you think back to like school days when like, you have winter break and you can't wait to just like go home, like college, right? You can't wait to go back to your parents' house and completely regress and like drop all responsibility, sleep till noon every day and just eat Christmas cookies and like watch nostalgic favorites from your childhood. Like I did so many like Lord of the Rings marathons like during Christmas break, and like you and I did that as well. Like we'd go to, because in college we were dating and we would go to each other's families' houses and we would watch Lord of the Rings and stuff, and it's just like,
well, also the Hobbit movies were coming out when we were in college.
Yes, they were.
And they came
every
out around
Christmas break. Like it would be like we finished finals, we go see the Hobbit. It was the best thing.
And it was was at UT Austin.
Yeah.
And the theater they have there is the Bob Bullock IMAX, which is
Yes.
the largest IMAX in Texas.
Yeah,
which,
so we'd like walk across the street and like go see these movies.
by default, that probably makes it the largest in the country.
Probably.
It's a Titanic screen.
It's pretty awesome.
And seeing something like the movies we've seen there, we saw the Batman there this year. Other things we've seen there were Skyfall.
Yeah.
The Hobbit movies, like big movies. And it is an unparalleled viewing
We
experience.
saw Deadpool there too. But yeah.
The
Yeah.
immersion, it's just crushing. So I have that kind of larger than life Christmas time association with fantasy.
And so and we've mentioned before on the show, I'm not a sci-fi person. Like, I'm really not. I'm much more a fantasy horror person. But Star Wars to me, I mean, I didn't grow up with it like Cam did. Just because I wasn't interested as a child. Like, my parents saw it when it came out in the 70s because they were in like high school, college when it came out.
Sure.
And like they love Star Wars. But I think it was like, one, maybe a little too scary for us as kids, and two, just like, I don't think, and either, I had sisters, like none of us were interested, which is like so gendered and stupid, but like we weren't interested in it. And then I got older and I was like, I don't like sci-fi, like I don't care about Star Wars. And now I've seen not all of them, but some of them, and I'm like, yeah, Star Wars is cool. Like, it's fine. And like, we watched Mandalorian a couple years ago, and I love the Mandalorian. Like, that's great. But I've never seen the full original trilogy. So we were like, we should do that.
And have you seen any of the prequels? That trilogy?
I think I've seen all three. I don't remember them very well.
Right. And you've seen all three of the Disney ones?
Yeah, because I saw them as they came out, and those are
What about
fine.
Rogue One and
Seen
Solo?
Rogue One, I've seen Solo, loved both of those actually.
Yeah.
Those were both really great, and we're still Andor's on our list. So before you scream at us, we're gonna watch Andor. Don't worry.
So let's start with that before we're talking about the first Star Wars episode 4, A New Hope. I want to start with some questions before I get into all my little theories.
Cool.
For you, Maggie, these are just questions for you. As someone who doesn't like sci-fi, what made this movie work for you?
Well, I mean, I think you know how I'm going to answer this. There are elements of fantasy in this. Like, that's what it is. Like, yeah, we're in a setting with spaceships and planets and pew, 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 and, you know, that sort of thing. But it's like, there are elements of fantasy because the Jedi are like knights. The lightsabers are like swords. You've got a princess. You've got like these different creatures, like kind of like in a fantasy world where you've got orcs and elves and dwarves and gnomes. And here you've got Wookiees and I don't know, and all the other little creatures. And I think it's also all the political stuff, like the Empire and the rebels and like all the stuff that happens in the prequel trilogy. Like the politics in the prequel trilogy are actually really fascinating. I don't think they're explored very well, but like the bones are really good.
Well, it's an introduction more than a full statement on anything being the first movie.
Sure, yeah, but so like that all is really interesting to me. And also you can tell that like these movies aren't, I mean, you can get deep into them and into the lore, but they're made for mass audiences. They're not like specific like genre, like this is for sci-fi fans only. Star Wars is for everybody.
The lore is optional.
Yes. So Star Wars is very much for everybody, and so it feels more accessible and less like, I don't understand all these sci-fi things. So that helps too.
Right. So I tried to make a list of just the little things that I thought might have appealed to you, just knowing what you like.
Yeah.
There's the characters. There's the charisma of the performances.
Yeah.
I know you enjoyed Harrison Ford, for example.
Love Harrison Ford.
Shout out Tristan. But there's also things like creature design, which we talk about with horror movies, but it's the same principle here, and it's the same sort of practical effects.
Yes, the practical effects are great. I will say we watched this on Disney Plus, and it is the version where the CGI stuff has been added in,
and it's so occasional, but it's so distracting.
It's incredibly distracting and not good, and that is like I think it really knocks the movie down because if you just have the practical effects, the effects are so good and hold up so well.
But also for you as a musician, the music is probably better than it is in any of the other fantasy trilogies.
How did I not mention the music? The music is incredible. I don't know. I feel like the Lord of the Rings music might
maybe
top it.
Note for note, banger for banger.
And also Harry Potter is also John Williams. So like there's that. But Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's hard because I'm more attached to the Lord of the Rings music, so that I can't judge it fairly. But I mean, yeah, the Star Wars music is stunning. It's very, very good.
If I can take a second to try to answer the question, I was trying to think out just what made this work for me, because I haven't seen this movie in a while. And the word I kept coming back to, which is sort of littered through my notes here, is wonder. And I think a good way to explain that is to briefly discuss the intro of this movie. my memories were just starting on Tatooine, you find Uncle Ben, and then you get moving.
Yeah.
But that's not how the movie starts.
No.
The first 15 minutes are led by the droids.
Yes.
So there's a little dialogue, sort of exposition, but it's not heavy. There's not a ton of plot happening. Even though things are moving really quickly, there's a levity and an ease.
I was going to say, I feel very gently guided into this massive world.
And it's slapstick, simplicity, and that sense of wonder. Because no character, no machine, setting, costume, weapon, ship, none of them are like anything you've ever seen. It's so richly creative. And
totally.
Compared to any other sort of genre movie, this original Star Wars film is such a strong showing of imagination. It sets this tone, like we talked about when we watched Boba Fett. Those like multicolored metallic speeder bikes were wrong. That just wasn't. It was like it was off of the style.
Yes, that was not Star Wars. Yeah.
But you get that sense, that like locked in sense of what Star Wars style and iconic look is almost immediately.
Yeah.
And then you're swept away by that tone that is set so strongly. Like you said, you understand enough of what's happening, but most of your attention in those opening scenes are just marveling at how breathtaking and weird and beautiful and confident this world seems.
Yes, and I think that visual style you're talking about, that look that's so unique and you've never seen anything like it before, I think that paired with the like familiarity of the hero's journey, like the story itself is not that like groundbreaking, right? But it's this formula that we are familiar with plopped into this incredibly unique world, and that makes it so like on the one hand unique, but also like comfortable and accessible. So I think that the combination of those two, and then of course like the movies really expand and become much more complex with plot, and we move past the hero's journey pretty quickly. But having that little element of familiarity, I think, makes it really special.
And I'm reminded of a lot of parents I've talked to, including mine, always said that the first Harry Potter was their favorite. My dad always said the first one was favorite because that's the introduction to the world.
Yeah.
And it all feels so new and explosive and exciting.
Yeah.
I don't think any Star Wars project, maybe Mando gets the closest, but I don't know if any other Star Wars project has ever recaptured that sense of wonder that this film has.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they stick too closely to the visual language, to the characters and settings in the original film. And of course, the retread is never going to be as exciting.
Right.
And the thing I like about Mando is that it's really its own thing. I know it ties back to the original characters occasionally.
It's very isolated, though. Yeah.
But I think if you had to continue this world past this one movie, which we now have 1,000, between books and comics and games and
TV shows. Yeah.
I think the truest thing you can do to the spirit of this masterpiece original film is inventing more and getting weirder.
Yeah.
But like not with $200 million special effects. You use a weird puppet thing at the bar and just see where he goes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was trying to like figure out this question for you, because you've vaguely seen other things in this series, but you don't know exactly what happens.
No, I'm a little fuzzy.
Based on this first movie, what do you want from a sequel?
Well, I want more from Luke. I think that's intentional, is that he does grow in this film, but he's still, I think, the weakest character of our main characters. Like Han is a much more interesting character,
right?
And he has a much stronger arc in this first film. Leia is, of course, very cool and interesting. And then Obi-Wan, but he's dead now. And then our villains, and the droids. But like of our human trio, I think Luke is the least interesting. And so I want him to be. Because, I know so many people who, especially men, who growing up were so inspired by Luke and like felt so like tied to him and like, I want to be just like Luke Skywalker. And I think I've only seen all the way through of the original trilogy. I've only seen A New Hope, and I've seen it a million times, but I don't think I've like sat down and watched Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. And so I'm always thinking, why do you think Luke is so great? Like he's just like this like whiny kid who ends up becoming a good pilot, but he already was a good pilot. Like, I don't know.
Right.
And so I've never understood that. So I hope to see a lot more from Luke. That's really the biggest thing for me. Also, I don't know when it is that Luke and Leia find out that they're related, but I hope it's soon because it's really uncomfortable that they don't know. I mean, neither did George Lucas when they made this movie.
Right.
But I hope that's resolved pretty soon.
But your interest is piqued for more of this world?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because like as much as this first movie is a complete story and you could just cut it off there and that's it, and it was a fun little dive into this world, like I want to know so much more. I want to know what the deal is with the Empire. I want to know Leia's backstory. I want to know Han's backstory. Obviously I want to know about Luke's mysterious parents. I mean, spoiler, I do know some things, but like I want to know more about that.
Right.
Also, I've never, I mean, I guess spoilers for Star Wars, but I've never seen the scene, no, like, Luke, I am your father. Like,
really?
I've seen a clip,
Huh.
and I've seen him going, no, but like, I've never seen that scene in situ. I've never seen it in context. And I don't know which movie that's in. Don't tell me.
That's going to be fun.
Like, I'm so excited for that. So it's like a lot of these like big things, and like the training sequence with Yoda, like I've never seen that. Like, I know it exists. Like, I know all these like canonical, like big iconic moments in the original trilogy because the series is so self-referential and there are so many like callbacks and
Easter eggs
for these things in the later movies, but I've actually never seen them.
But I think what makes this movie work, and you alluded to this before, is that all of that lore is optional.
Yeah.
And what I was struck with watching this now, after doing something like this show for years, is how incredibly simple the plot is.
Yeah.
We follow the droids, gather a crew, get a ship is captured, and they escape.
Yeah.
That's the whole movie.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very simple story, and it's a very like predictable story. Like, there's nothing like amazing plot-wise about this.
Well, no, I think that is the amazing part. Is the accessibility, because those simple beats, it means that it's not closer to Lord of the Rings or Pirates of the Caribbean or Harry Potter for other big genre epic franchises of our childhood. It's closer to Mad Max Fury Road, where it has a very simple and direct plot, but it's the execution and the style and the creativity along the way that is so unbelievably striking. And just boiling down plot to those basic beats, the call to action, inciting incident, chase scene, you kill the mentor, and then there's a big action set piece. It works every time. And I think the problem with a lot of the later Star Wars movies, and I'm including everything after this one, I think they lose that simplicity.
Yes.
And I like the term self-referential that you just used, because I think that's what it becomes.
Yeah.
Is overwhelmingly looking back at the story and the lore.
Especially episode 7, like the first of the new trilogy.
Right.
That one had so many callbacks and Easter eggs to A New Hope. Like, that even I recognized it, like me not being a big Star Wars person. And I was like, this is obnoxious. Like, it's nice in a nostalgia way and in a fan servicey way, but it was so like maybe just make a good movie.
And like what it means to be a good Star Wars movie is sort of a different question.
Sure.
And it sounds so like dumb, but I think the rule of cool is very, very important for Star Wars. Because that argument sort of starts and ends with this movie. Look at the first scene with Vader's introduction.
I mean, it's so good.
The sound, the smoke, the voice, the violence. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it is top tier movie making.
I know. We were watching it and you were like, this is the coolest villain introduction of all time.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And there's one cool villain in the prequels that I won't spoil in case you forgot him. But like, I love the morally gray weirdness and conflictedness of Kylo Ren in the later movies.
Are you thinking about Palpatine? Is that what you're thinking
No.
of? Oh, okay. Then I don't know.
But yeah, that's why I didn't say it. But
is it Anakin?
but even Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
As much as I love Adam Driver, the way the character's written and looks, it's just not as cool.
It's not the same. I know. It's not the same. And even Rey, who I think is a fascinating character, like I love the idea of her. I think Daisy Ridley is she does a really good performance, but I don't love the way that character's written. And like, she's not interesting. I don't know.
Obviously, this villain, Darth Vader, is cool enough that you're going to use him for all of this trilogy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we have 8 other movies and like 5 seasons of TV now.
Yeah,
And there's not another cool-ass villain.
I know. Like, even like Mandalorian, which we loved, the point of that show is not the villain. It's the villain is like, will Grogu and Mando stay together and be okay? Like, you vaguely got villains, but that doesn't matter. That's not the point.
Right. And it's like slamming the piano keys on either end, where they're they get your attention the hardest. This movie has the coolest bad guy and the coolest good guys.
Yes.
And of course, I'm not talking about the humans. The charm offensive of R2-D2
oh my God.
is the blueprint for what's working so well in Mando.
Yeah.
You don't get Grogu, and I didn't catch this when I saw Mando. I was like, oh, Grogu, they've never had a cute baby alien before.
They've had
R2-D2 is a cute baby alien.
I mean, the scene when, like, early in the movie when Luke is, like, buying the droids and he gets C-3PO, and R2-D2, like, basically, like, begs, like, you could tell, begs C-3PO to not leave him behind. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
It's so charming and heartbreaking.
And that's the trick. As someone who's a big fan of weird, cute little characters.
Yeah.
It's not just the cuteness and the vulnerability and the little noises. It's the nobility. R2 is noble.
He's also the hero of the story.
Because
he's in the X-wing with Luke at the end.
Yeah.
He's essential to the success of the movie.
Yeah, he's my favorite little through line. So I love that.
And he and C-3PO saved them from the trash compactor. Like, they're essential components to this movie.
He's as cool and important as Darth Vader is.
Yes, exactly.
So I think after a fashion now we have to talk about some of the humans.
Okay.
Before we get... no, let's just do it this way.
Well, okay.
Space fantasy.
Yeah.
So this is the thing we previewed a couple episodes ago, telling people we were going to talk about this movie. George Lucas called this movie a space fantasy, more than a sci-fi. And being, half the time we're a fantasy show, I wanted to dig into that with a little more vigor.
Sure.
So, Gandalf. We have a Gandalf here in Obi-Wan. Obviously, we have Obi-Wan with the hood, the beard, the wisdom. He dies at the end of the first movie. That's our Gandalf.
Tells Luke about his family, Yeah.
We have a hero without parents. And for good measure, we even see his aunt and uncle get nuked.
Yep.
So that's our Frodo. That's our Harry.
That's our Batman.
Exactly. And,
no, sorry, Spider-Man. That's what I meant. But yeah.
Oh, they both have a parents issue.
Exactly.
We also have a masked, cloaked villain with untold magical powers and political ambitions. So that's your Voldemort. That's your Sauron. That's we're checking all those boxes: the hero, the mentor, the villain.
Yep.
But I think the more interesting question, and of course I'm bringing this back to Lord of the Rings, is what about Gollum? So in my head, I looked through basically every character in this movie. I scrolled through the IMDb thing, looking for some, morally gray chestnut for us to crack.
Yeah.
There are almost no morally gray characters anywhere in this movie.
Well, Han a little bit.
Exactly.
Is he Gollum?
Han Solo is Gollum. This is my big idea for this movie.
Okay.
I initially thought, by the way he's coded, by the way he looks, by the way he reclines, I thought he was Aragorn. He's the handsome, mysterious rogue.
Yeah.
But it's the biggest takeaway I had watching this movie as an adult who thinks.
Yeah.
It's not how the movie treats him. This movie does not treat him like the cool rogue.
No, he just is cool, objectively.
Right. Han Solo, Harrison Ford is cool.
Yes.
but the movie regularly questions and condemns the character.
Totally.
It's fascinating. He is positioned in every scene and by all of these other characters as unreliable, amoral, and sort of a lost cause. He's presented as being terminally conflicted with self-interest and greed.
Yeah.
And most of the runtime of the film plays with the will he, won't he, until the pivot at the end.
Yes.
Where, unlike Gollum, he comes through for his new friends.
Yes.
Which makes this a more optimistic story
Sure.
than Lord of the Rings.
Also, I mean, he's their guide. He is necessary
like Gollum.
For the journey that our hero goes on.
Yep.
So that makes total sense.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Interesting.
And if you have any other morally gray characters that you caught in this movie, let us know. But that's my working theory.
Yeah,
Han Solo's gone.
For this movie, yeah, it's Han Solo. That's funny.
And the only other big fantasy trope or echo of something like Lord of the Rings that I caught here was the ending scene where the characters bend down and get medals.
Yeah.
And it's a celebration in front of the whole rebel army.
Yes.
But that's not how Fellowship ends.
No.
That's how Return of the King ends.
Yes, that's the very end. Exactly.
So in this vein, because this was a new IP and a risky movie at the time, can you view this movie as like a microcosm trilogy?
Perhaps.
A fantasy trilogy that we're talking about.
Well, see, what I'm thinking of is the end of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when the siblings are all coronated at Caravel. Like, that's always what this scene reminded me of when in Star Wars. Like, I always thought of that Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And to be fair, that's not the first book in the Narnia series, but it is very often the one that people start with. And so, you know, it's not the culmination and the completion of a series, but a scene like that is like the end of sort of like a first installation of a series of sorts. So that's always what I think of. But I'm curious to hear more if you have more about it being like its own little trilogy within one movie.
Well, I was trying to collapse it down. The things you get in a middle installment and leading up to the finale, because we do have the finale, the whole Death Star run is a good finale. And I think that's comparable to whatever you get in Lord of the Rings or any of the other comparisons we're mentioning. But all of the middle stuff, like if you're using a really broad brush about Lord of the Rings and you're breaking down everything from Gandalf dying to the final battle in Mount Doom, everything in the middle, basically Rohan and Gondor. I know I'm leaving stuff out, but those are the big strokes.
Yeah.
The boiled down idea there is seeking allies and gathering this larger force, this rebel alliance.
Nice.
The arc of gathering our little crew and eventually folding them into the larger rebel alliance and then making that final push on the enemy. That sort of is the arc of a fantasy trilogy.
That's true. Yeah.
And I know in later movies we'll get characters like Yoda and Lando who are, you know, going out on a quest to get allies. I know we're going to do that more.
Yeah.
But I felt like we sort of already accomplished that in this film.
Yeah.
Where it works as almost a standalone movie. I know we didn't kill... the Emperor doesn't even exist in this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't kill the Empire.
No.
But not every, you know, going up against a fascist regime, Rebel Alliance thing, you don't have to win in every movie for that to work.
Sure.
So like Rogue One was satisfying and they didn't win.
It didn't go very well. Spoiler. Yeah,
But like try to think of a world where this is a standalone fluke. It's like a little masterstroke in this guy, George Lucas's career, and it bombed and there was nothing that came after it.
Yeah.
I think it would still sort of be a satisfying conclusion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to think of when the Death Star destroys Leia's planet.
Alderaan.
Yeah, I need to start with an A. What is that in like a Lord of the Rings style? Like
Scouring of the Shire.
Well, I was thinking more like, is it like a Helm's Deep thing? Like a midway, like, although Helm's Deep is a successful battle. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I think it might be the Scouring, but you drop it in the middle.
Okay. But yeah, so I'm just trying to feel like, okay, like what's
right.
like the mid trilogy, you know, big time
right.
thing.
When you have to put the hero at their lowest before they can rise up.
No. I mean, I think the midpoint, you know, the midway high point is when they are able to escape from the Death Star. Like that whole act 2 of them being on the Death Star, they almost get caught, they almost get killed, Obi-Wan dies. Like that's like but they escape successfully, they get their ship back, hooray. Like that's almost an ending of its own. And then the third and final act is when they come back with this new Rebel Alliance and they destroy the Death Star. So
huge props to this movie for being 2 hours long.
I know. There's so much in it.
For the amount of stuff and introduction and world building, the locations, and like you said, those distinct acts, which feel like their own movie. But it all ties so well together.
Yeah.
So by the time the lights come up or the credits roll, it feels like you've gone on a complete adventure.
Journey. Yes, totally. Yeah.
The scope is pretty incredible here.
Yes. But it never feels like I'm lost. I don't know what's going on. Because like, even though they mention, you've said this before, I don't know if on this podcast, but perhaps in the podcast of life, you've said that the beauty of the lore of Star Wars is that you cannot care about it at all.
Right.
Like they mention so many things and so many place names, character names, creatures, like they reference the Clone Wars and like all these things. But if you don't understand what any of those are, it does not matter, because you can just smooth sailing and still get the bulk of the story.
Yeah, like the best example of that is Han Solo talking up the Millennium Falcon, saying like it ran the Kessel Run in something parsecs.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that means.
No, I never will.
And because I saw Solo, I do know what it means. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything, because you get, the ship's fast.
Like, it's like what all of that is doing is it's not just like meaningless.
Right.
Like, it's not George Lucas just making stuff up to sound cool. Like, at least I don't think so. I think it's like, it's introducing and opening up this incredibly large, rich, complex, complete fantasy world, but in a way where you don't feel like you can't keep up and you have to like take notes and refer to a glossary or an index or, a list of characters.
Like the content doesn't matter, but it accomplishes something on a character level.
Yeah.
And the confidence of the story charging through all of these beats and worlds and not slowly opening the door and marveling. Like you're marveling at stuff that's happening. Right. But the movie doesn't stop for that.
No, it's like all you need to know is Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie and the droids.
Right.
And there's an Empire, and there's a Death Star, and there's Darth Vader, and they're trying to not die.
And I think you just kind of moonwalked into something I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
This movie, for being the beginning of a fantasy trilogy, has a very efficient, small fellowship. You have Luke, Leia, and Han.
Right.
And because, there are other characters, but that's your trio.
Yes.
And like the trio in Harry Potter, they all play multiple roles. They're much closer to Harry, Hermione, Ron than they are the Fellowship.
Yes.
Which has so many characters that, not to say anyone in the Lord of the Rings Fellowship is one note, but they can sort of serve one function.
Yeah.
Boromir can be human weakness and doubt. Aragorn can be sort of a detached father figure that leads the team.
Yeah.
Gandalf can be the grandfather. Like, it breaks down like that. But with Harry, Ron, Hermione, even during any of the one stories, they're playing so many different roles.
Yes.
And those dynamics shift and bend and twist between them.
Yes.
I love that we see so much from Luke, Leia, and Han here. They're all fleshed out with distinct characteristics and motivations and goals and tragedies and backstory, but they also facilitate these sidekicks. Someone like Chewie, he tells you more about Han in the same way C-3PO tells you more about Luke, and R2 tells you more about Leia. They're very weaponized, functional sidekicks.
Definitely, yeah.
And that almost, more than it reminded me of Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, it reminded me of The Witcher, where you have a couple principal characters and then this constant rotating door of guest stars.
Yeah.
And that's how I started, when I was watching it, that's how I was looking at all of these side characters, whether it's Uncle Ben or C-3PO, R2, Chewie. All of these people they come in contact who just push the pieces a little bit forward on the board. It felt like the way The Witcher uses characters.
Yeah.
Where they'll be fundamental to a couple scenes.
Yeah.
And then they'll just buzz off for a book or two.
Also, like in The Witcher, we get scenes of just the villains.
Right.
Like we're not just following our hero. I mean, in a lot of those scenes, Leia's in there, but we see like Vader and his buddies like planning things, and like without any of our heroes on screen. Like, so we get to see the whole picture, the whole board, the way that we do in The Witcher.
Right. And you don't have to be tapped on the shoulder and knighted to be a POV character.
Right.
We follow Leia on her own.
Yep.
We follow Luke on his own. Like, that just happens. We follow the droids on their own.
Yes.
There's that narrative flexibility and restlessness, which is what we compliment Sapkowski on every time we discuss The Witcher.
Yes, right.
And I thought this was a shockingly nimble movie compared to how I remembered it. I mean, you remember it as being an archetype, as being the framework after which all genre movies, and especially franchises, base themselves. But I don't think any of them are as light on their feet as this Star Wars movie is.
Yeah. I'm also thinking like the fact that like when we were watching this, we kind of paid a close attention to this. Luke doesn't appear on screen till like 20 minutes in, something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the Witcher series, Geralt's in the first. Like he's the first thing mentioned in all the book series. But if you think about some of the other books in the series, like there are like a book will start with like 1, 2, 3 chapters that Geralt's not in. Like because I mean Geralt is our main character, but again, you don't have to be special to get a POV and to get your own scene. And so he trusts us enough to follow along and know Geralt is our main guy, but we can go on little tangents, and that's almost what's happening with this like soft introduction to Luke in A New Hope.
But what that takes to follow a tertiary character, it takes confidence from the creator.
Yes.
To not have to say, well, we need to have Mark Hamill in every scene or they're going to get lost.
How are they going to know who our hero is?
It's a confidence in storytelling and almost the directorial work that an author does. Sometimes Sapkowski feels like he's putting the camera in a weird place.
Yeah.
Whether it's even if you're not listening to our Witcher episodes, last week there were some characters who were in this like bandit camp with all these other thieves. And instead of just following the characters we knew, we were following the POV of someone we've never met who was watching them and trying to eavesdrop to like sell information and make some money.
Yeah.
And it gave the scene this great danger and conspiracy and urgency to it that elevated even the mundane stuff that was happening.
Yes, right.
Those are the little tricks that feel like the tricks of a great movie director that Sapkowski's so good with. And I feel like George Lucas has that same great sense of storytelling.
Yes, I totally agree. Very good storyteller.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
This
I love
so
this
much
rewatch.
fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like again, like it's Star Wars is never going to be my favorite thing, but this is a great movie, and I just wish I could fully understand. I mean, I can imagine, but obviously I'm not going to know how this movie hit an audience in 1977.
Right.
Like that's the year it came out, right?
Something like that.
Late 70s. Like I can't imagine going to a theater in the 70s and seeing this movie. Like that would just be mind-blowing.
You'd go 100 times.
I mean, that's the way my parents have described it.
Right.
Yeah, they saw it like over and over in theaters, and they said it was like the most amazing thing they'd ever seen.
Sure.
And like they were like, I can't believe a movie can be like this. Like I just think that's such a cool thing. And we've talked before about George Lucas's journey of making these movies.
Empire of Dreams is the documentary on Disney Plus. It's fantastic.
And it was made pre-Disney acquisition of Star Wars,
Right.
which I think helps.
But there's
because Disney documentaries tend to be very like
fluffy
and just very like obsessed with themselves.
Yeah.
It is not like that at all. It's really interesting. And just a really inspiring and heartbreaking story about George Lucas trying to make these movies. So
hustle.
We've talked about it before on the show, so we don't have to get into it now.
Right.
But just like that on top of everything we've talked about, you're like, yeah, this is a great movie.
Maybe a good way to wrap this up. I saw this clip online the other day of Jonah Hill being interviewed, and the question was of all the directors he's worked with, because he's had such a funky, varied career. He was asking like, who's the best director you've worked with, and the question wasn't even finished before Jonah Hill spat out Martin Scorsese. And he was trying to explain why. And I'd never really thought about directing the way he defined it. Now, I'm obviously paraphrasing here, but he said being a director is making decisions and problem solving, constantly problem solving, whether it's a logistical difficulty or just how to pose something, how to emotionally set a scene,
a story problem,
talk to an actor, just tell a story. And he was talking about Scorsese because he's made so many movies he's got just a great artistic brain.
Yeah.
That he could just close his eyes and open them and have solved the problem in this like gorgeous way.
Cool.
Because he's just one of those, once in a generation sort of artistic minds. Mm-hmm. George Lucas has that. And I love watching this like rawest form because it's a finished product, but it also has the appeal of like a demo from a music artist you love. And he doesn't direct the next two movies in this trilogy.
Oh, I always forget that. Yeah.
So this one is sort of special. I know we're going to go through the rest of them, and he directs the prequel trilogy.
Okay.
But this one is such an interesting test case before we get the polish and, the kitchen sink swagger of going into a successful sequel. I was really blown away by a movie I already loved watching this again.
Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, so we're gonna go through at least the full original trilogy, if not the others.
We'll see how it goes.
And again, we said this before, we're not gonna like do this every week. This isn't like a new series we're doing. We're just gonna occasionally do a Star Wars.
It's a casual series.
Yes, it'll we'll go through them at whatever pace we feel like doing. So all that to say, you've definitely got some time before we cover Empire Strikes Back. So if you've got thoughts you want to share about it, or thoughts about New Hope or our discussion on New Hope, you can send us an email, secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com. You can message us on Instagram or TikTok at secondbreakfastpod, or you can comment on YouTube.
Channel.
If you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a comment below. Or I always forget, like, these also go on YouTube. Or if you are subscribed to our Substack, which you should be, it is just Second Breakfast Pod on Substack. You can comment on the post that comes with this episode. You can also sign up for our $5 a month tier on Substack and get extra things on top of all this other stuff. Anything else? Anyway, so you've got time to share your thoughts about Star Wars.
Yeah.
What?
No, you go.
I was just going to ask, do y'all think Star Wars is a Christmas movie? Yes or no? What were you going to say?
That'll be the Substack poll.
Yeah.
I was going to say we're doing a slight shift to our scheduling this week. Where
I love the way the Brits say schedule.
Where
so charming.
On Friday, we're kind of eager. Last week, we covered Witcher, Baptism of Fire, Chapter 5. And it just lit a fire under us.
Yeah, we were like, we got to... Because we recently switched to doing every other week for The Witcher, because these chapters are long and it's a lot. And that's been good, but...
We're just going to do it again.
Yeah.
So Friday's episode is going to be the next Witcher chapter.
Yeah.
Baptism of Fire, Chapter 6. We're just pushing forward. And I want to see how this book rolls out. So. Yeah, that'll be us on Friday.
Yeah, we'll be back with that.
See you in a few days. And let us know what you think of Star Wars. And, do you think we should cover all the movies?
Yeah, like...
Should we give up?
Should we only do original trilogy? Should we do the episodes 1 through 6? Should we bother with the spin-off? Should we... What if we just do an episode-by-episode breakdown of the Clone Wars? Remember that? Wasn't that like an animated series?
I think so. I never watched it.
Neither did I.
I'm good.
I don't know what's going on over there. Cool. All right. Well, happy Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.